The sun was setting behind the dense canopy of the forest, casting long shadows that danced eerily across the forest floor. 5 friends, Alex, Lisa, Ben, Sarah, and Jake, were deep into their hiking trip, far from the trail they had started on. The forest was known for its beauty, but it was also notorious for its labyrinthine paths that seemed to change and shift, leading many to lose their way. "We should have reached the campsite by now," Alex said, glancing nervously at the map. "I'm not sure where we are." Lisa tried to stay optimistic. "Maybe we took a wrong turn. Let's set up camp here for the night and figure it out in the morning." The group agreed, setting up their tents in a small clearing. As the last light of day faded, the forest around them grew unnervingly silent. The usual sounds of nocturnal creatures were absent, replaced by an oppressive stillness that set them all on edge. Ben, trying to lighten the mood, joked, "Maybe we'll spot Bigfoot tonight." Sarah shivered. "Don't even joke about that. This place is creepy enough." As darkness enveloped them, they huddled around a small campfire, the flickering flames casting ghostly shadows on their faces. The temperature dropped rapidly, and a dense fog began to creep through the trees, wrapping them in an almost tangible chill. "Did you hear that?" Jake suddenly asked, his voice barely a whisper. The others strained to listen, and then they heard it too, a soft rustling sound like something moving through the underbrush. "Probably just an animal," Alex said, though he didn't sound convinced. They decided to take turns keeping watch, just to be safe. Alex took the first shift while the others tried to sleep, but rest was elusive. The forest seemed to breathe around them, the fog thickening and swirling as if it were alive. Hours passed, and it was Lisa's turn to watch. She stared into the darkness, her eyes playing tricks on her. The trees seemed to move, their gnarled branches reaching out like skeletal hands. She could have sworn she saw glowing eyes peering from the shadows. Then came the sound, a low, guttural growl, followed by the unmistakable crunch of footsteps on dried leaves. Lisa's heart raced as she shone her flashlight into the trees, but the beam illuminated nothing but the thick fog. "Wake up," she hissed, shaking the others. "There's something out there." Bleary-eyed, they scrambled out of their tents, clutching whatever makeshift weapons they could find. The growling grew louder, closer, until it was all around them. "Stay close," Alex ordered, his voice shaking. "We need to stay together." But panic set in as shadows darted between the trees, faster than their eyes could follow. Sarah screamed as a clawed hand reached out from the fog, slashing her arm. Blood welled up, staining her sleeve. "Run!" Jake shouted, and they bolted through the forest, the fog closing in around them like a living thing. The sounds of pursuit were everywhere. Growls, snarls, the snap of branches underfoot. The creatures were toying with them, herding them deeper into the woods. They ran until they stumbled into another clearing, gasping for breath. The fog receded slightly, revealing more of the terrifying shapes lurking at the edges of the light. Tall, gaunt figures with glowing eyes and elongated limbs, their skin pale and stretched tight over sharp bones. "We can't outrun them," Ben panted, clutching a large stick. "We have to fight." They formed a tight circle, backs to each other, weapons raised. The creatures circled them, their movements slow and deliberate, as if savoring the fear that radiated from the group. One of the creatures lunged, and Alex swung his flashlight, connecting with a sickening crunch. The creature howled in pain, but more surged forward, their claws slashing through the air. The night became a blur of chaos and terror. Lisa felt a searing pain as one of the creatures bit into her leg, dragging her down. Jake was pulled into the shadows, his screams abruptly cut off. Ben and Sarah fought side by side, but they were overwhelmed, the creatures relentless in their attack. Alex, bloodied and battered, saw an opening and shouted, "Run, now!" He grabbed Sarah's hand, and they sprinted into the darkness, the remaining creatures hot on their heels. They ran blindly, branches whipping at their faces, until they burst into a moonlit glade. At the center stood an ancient stone structure, covered in moss and vines. Desperation drove them inside, where they found a narrow passage leading underground. "Do you think we're safe?" Sarah asked, her voice trembling. "I don't know," Alex admitted. "But we can't stop now." They descended into the darkness, the air growing colder with each step. The passage opened into a cavern, lit by an eerie, phosphorescent glow. Strange symbols were carved into the walls, and the air was filled with a low hum, like distant chanting. "We need to keep moving," Alex urged, but Sarah had stopped, staring at the carvings. Sarah, come on. They're warnings, she whispered. This place, it's a trap. Before Alex could respond, the creature's howls echoed down the passage. They had found them. He pulled Sarah along, and they raced through the cavern, searching for any way out. They stumbled into a chamber filled with ancient relics and a large circular stone slab in the center. As they approached, the slab began to glow, the symbols on it pulsing with an unnatural light. Touch it, Sarah said, a strange calm in her voice. It's our only hope. With no other options, Alex placed his hand on the stone. Light exploded from the slab, blinding them both. The air hummed with energy, and the creature's howls turned to shrieks of agony. When the light faded, Alex and Sarah found themselves outside the forest, the first rays of dawn breaking over the horizon. The forest behind them was silent once more. The fog dissipated. They collapsed to the ground, exhausted and traumatized. What happened? Alex asked, his voice raw. I don't know, Sarah replied, staring back at the forest, but I don't think those creatures will ever let anyone leave again. They walked back to civilization in silence, the memory of the night etched into their minds. The forest remained, a dark and malevolent presence, waiting for its next victims.